They did pause their retaliation, said it was supposed to take effect in mid-April. They're going to pause it. That's what they decided today. They have been talking consistently all the way throughout about wanting negotiating space. They really, really don't want a trade war, and so they're trying to figure out what room there is for negotiation. They've been very clear they're happy to talk about tariffs and reducing tariffs to zero and on many, many things, industrial goods and cars and that kind of thing. But the Trump administration has made it clear that it's also talking about what it calls non-tariff barriers as well.
Mm-hmm. Who has, actually, better question first. Within the EU, are all the leaders in agreement on how to manage the situation?
They're mostly in agreement so far. So trade is a competency of the European Commission. So that really is very squarely something that Brussels is in charge of. But it still does need sort of sign off at times from the member states, or there are times where the member states could block things. And so, other than Hungary, most member states have broadly been in the same place. I think there are some subtle differences, though, where there are some countries that are sort of getting ready to want to take a harder line on the U.S. at some point. Germany and France in particular, whereas you are seeing some other countries like Spain and Italy be a little more cautious about that. Really want to try to keep the negotiations open and try to do everything they can to avoid a trade war.
So, Kevin, is the EU, are they going to send a delegation to D.C. to negotiate? Because we hear the administration saying how, up to 70 countries, are, kind of in line to kind of negotiate with the U.S. How is the EU handling it?
I mean, the EU has been eager to negotiate. They've been reaching out. Their trouble has been finding anyone to pick up the phone and take their meetings. And so, the EU trade chief Maros Sefcovic has been in D.C. He did meet with recently with the Commerce Secretary and the Trade Rep, and the Treasury Secretary. He'd like to do that again, but at this point, they're kind of waiting for someone to schedule some meetings and be there. The real problem I think the EU has, even beyond that, is it's not really clear whether Lutnick and Bessent and Greer are in a position to make a deal. So much of this is going to come down to Donald Trump. And as we've seen, he can seem like he's not interested in a deal one day, and then the bond market crashes and suddenly he's talking about deals again. And so I think everyone's trying to understand what really is Trump's strategy with these tariffs here. Right. Is he looking for deals? Is he really trying to cut something? Or is he really talking about something that's a much longer term structural thing that's going to be a feature of his entire administration, no matter the economic pain?
I mean, it definitely, from what he himself has said, it's the latter, but also instinct on when to change it. So that makes that a much more difficult interaction if you're the trade minister. Who has the upper hand then, just in terms of, say, good flows, trade balances, fiscal support?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I don't think there's a straightforward answer to it. I think on some level, Trump could throw around the weight of the American economy and some of that leverage there, and that can be a very effective weapon. On the European side, it does come. This fight comes at a more vulnerable time where the economies have been suffering a little bit. And, they're obviously reeling from a couple of different things. They're trying to figure out how to fill a bit of a void being left by the United States and in Ukraine. They're trying to figure out how to, stimulate their economies and their lagging competitiveness. And so there is that concern. On the flip side of that, suddenly Europe is looking like a pretty reliable market that's got a pretty predictable set of rules that aren't about to change. And so, and they're going through what they think is a pretty effective, or they hope it's going to be an effective effort to try to streamline and simplify some of the burdensome regulation. If they can do some of that, maybe down the line, the power of their single market is going to help them compete. But I think in the short to medium term, it's certainly an uncomfortable time for this fight to be happening.
What have we heard from the UK?
Yeah, good.
The UK has been in a slightly different situation, at least, in the reciprocal sort of tariff, numbers that Trump rolled out. The UK wasn't getting any extra penalty. So there's that baseline 10% was all that was going to hit the UK. They didn't, they weren't raised like the rest of the EU up to 20%. And Trump has so far been pretty happy about his relationship with the UK Prime Minister. But in reality, I'm not really sure that they're actually all that advantaged down the line. And if anything, I think it has raised a lot of interesting dynamics and opportunities for the UK and the EU to sort of get closer again.